Hello there, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into an idea that sounds so simple, but it's honestly one of the most powerful and challenging things we can do, figuring out what it really means to welcome someone. And our whole journey kicks off with a story that starts with this one simple, heartbreaking request.
Just imagine hearing those words. They were spoken in a quiet church, and they changed everything in that room. They pointed to a hunger that was about so much more than food. To really get it, you have to go back to that moment.
Okay, so let me set the scene for you. It's a dimly lit church on Maundy Thursday. It's this quiet, ordinary evening service. You know, the kind that smells like old wooden pews and lemon furniture polish. It's the kind of evening you never ever expect to remember for the rest of your life. But this one became totally unforgettable.
So, about halfway through the service, this man walks in. He looks tired, maybe a little lost, and just worn out by life. He slides into a pew near the front, and he's got this kind of dazed, watchful look on his face, almost like he's expecting to be yelled at, not welcomed. Then, it's time for communion. And as people start going up, he just stays put. He seems really unsure. You can almost see the hesitation, maybe even a little bit of fear in his eyes. But then, a member of the congregation quietly goes over to him and gently invites him to come forward.
So he goes, and he takes this big piece of bread, and right there, instead of just moving on, he eats it. He looks the person who served him right in the eye and says, in this surprisingly sweet, clear voice, "This is good. So sweet and good." And you could just feel this ripple go through the room, like a collective gasp.
That's when he asks it, "May I have some more? I'm so hungry." And in that second, it was like he wasn't just speaking for himself. Suddenly, he was speaking for every single person in that room, for that deep hunger we all have, for acceptance, for grace. In that one moment, this whole community was just snatched up into something way bigger. It became this perfect picture of what real welcome looks like.
Now here's what's so fascinating. This very modern challenge, how do we actually welcome each other for real? It's not new at all. In fact, it was the exact problem that an early Christian community in Rome was dealing with, and it's something the Apostle Paul wrote to them about in one of his most famous letters.
See, the church in Rome was split right down the middle. On one side, you had a group Paul called the weak, not because they were bad people, but because their faith was still really tied up in old rules and traditions they just couldn't let go of. And on the other side, you had the strong, people who had this new understanding of grace. But the problem was, in all their confidence, they were really struggling to accept the weak. So you have these two groups, both totally sincere, who just couldn't get along.
And this is Paul's direct instruction to them. He's basically saying, guys, come on, just welcome each other. But everything hangs on that one word, welcome. Because the original Greek word he used, well, it means something way more radical than just being polite.
And this right here brings us to the absolute core of what we're talking about today. We're about to unpack what that simple command to welcome really means. And I promise you, getting this is a total game changer.
So that word can be translated as welcome or accept or receive. At its very root is this ancient idea of hospitality. And we're not talking about putting out fancy napkins. We're talking about creating a safe space for someone, a space where they can become everything they were meant to be. But it goes even deeper than that.
This is it. This is the heart of it all. To welcome someone in this deep sense is to make the conscious decision to magnify the light of another. It means choosing to look for that spark of good, of the divine, of humanity in them, even if that light is super dim, even if it's covered up by pain or bad choices or just life. It's an active choice to amplify the good.
Okay, so magnify the light. That sounds beautiful, right? But what does it actually look like in the real world? It's really easy to get this wrong, so let's get super practical about what this kind of welcome is, and just as important, what it isn't.
Now, let's be really clear. Magnifying someone's light does not mean you agree with them on everything. It's not about condoning behavior you think is wrong. It's not about just being superficially nice and pretending everything's fine. And it's definitely not about making all the tension magically disappear. What it is choosing to offer fundamental respect. It's looking for that light. It's tolerating the messy complexity of another human being and giving them the space and grace to grow and change. So how do you do that? Well, the number one way is to truly listen. And here's how. First, listen without just planning your comeback in your head the whole time they're talking. We all do it. Second, listen to create a safe space where some real truth might actually have a chance to show up for both of you. And third, listen simply as an act of solidarity. You're not trying to win an argument. You're trying to connect with another human.
I mean, this story just illustrates the difference perfectly. The author, Philip Yancey, told this story about his friend who's a recovering alcoholic. The friend said, "When I'm late for church, people just stare, I get the judgment glare. But," he said, "when I'm late for my AA meeting, the whole room stops, everyone gets up to hug me. Because they know that me being late might mean I almost didn't make it at all." That is magnifying the light.
So you see, this isn't just some dusty old spiritual concept. It is a powerful, powerful antidote to one of the biggest problems we're facing today: loneliness. Let's talk about why this matters so much, right here and right now.
It's kind of a weird paradox, isn't it? We live in what one writer called the anti-social century. We've got endless ways to be connected, but study after study shows that people are feeling more isolated than ever before. That feeling of real community is stretched thin, and so many of us are just aching for a genuine connection.
Think about this little story. At a church fair, the youth group decided to set up a hugging booth. Pretty simple. And the price for one hug was just $0.25.
Well, there was a woman who was experiencing homelessness who kept everything she owned in a shopping cart. For weeks leading up to the fair, she would save up her quarters. And on the day of the fair, she would stand in line over and over again, spending all the money she had on hugs. Finally, one of the kids in the youth group gently asked her why. And she looked right at him and said, "Because nobody hugs someone like me." That tiny act of acceptance, of welcome, it was everything.
So, as we start to wrap this up, it all comes down to one final, really crucial point. This whole challenge to welcome other people, it eventually turns right back around and points at ourselves. It's a challenge to not run away.
This quote just nails it. Because here's the thing. To truly, authentically welcome other people, we first have to learn how to welcome ourselves. All of it. The flaws, the failures, the fears. Real spiritual growth isn't about becoming perfect. It's about how much truth we can stand to face about who we really are without running. And that brings us to this powerful call to action put so beautifully by the great John Lewis. Don't run from your own light, and don't run from that little flicker of light you see in someone you disagree with. When you can anchor yourself in that truth and let it shine, that's when you actually become part of building a better world.
So, that's the whole thing. It's not some big abstract idea. It's a practical, daily choice. It starts small. It starts right now. So the question for you is, whose light will you choose to magnify today?